Okay, good. No problem.
We got him in.
Great. Okay. So my dive into dogs, I was actually born into a world of professional dog handlers. And so my life has been really consumed by dogs. But in that time, I saw dogs really misunderstood. I saw dogs struggle. And in that time, I developed a real heart for compassionate dog training. And this was in about year 2000s. I mean, there wasn't a lot on the scene for that. We were really in a dominant-based culture of dog training. And while positive reinforcement was starting to pick up steam, meaning that we actually used reward instead of punishment for training, we weren't seeing the holistic side of things coming in as much as we're now seeing it. And the reason why is science has been able to pick up the pace. So later on in the presentation, you're going to hear me talk about canine neurobiology. And it's a big word. Don't worry, I'm not a scientist, but I was able to go into this area of study and come back out and say, it's easy. A dog has a brain. Every dog has a brain. Sometimes I wonder how it's working, but it is in there. And that is how I've come to understand that compassion really lies in understanding the science. So I am what's called a games-based dog trainer. Now you're going to start hearing that term come up a lot, probably in the next 10 years. It's picking up pace. And the reason why is, again, neurobiology leads the way. And so dogs learn in a fun environment. So we're going to take a little, let's see, where are we at here? Sorry, there was just a door knock and then a dog bark. All these things happen. Okay, so I love games. Dogs love games. And the reason they love games is because it creates a relaxed learning environment. When a dog is feeling encouraged and supported and empowered, they can take in new information, they can make new motor pathways, they can learn. And so we create an environment with our dogs that is fun and supportive. And so games, while it may sound like light and fluffy and it's not going to work with my Rottweiler, actually that Rottweiler has a brain, right? So that Rottweiler is no different than having a Chihuahua to a Yorkie to a Cavalier to some mixed dog, wherever, came from whatever. They love games. That's like saying to a kid, no, they like rules and punishment. They don't like it. No, and it's not optimal conditions. So dogs love games, and we continue playing games because, and I'm just going to change the view here. So the power of play is one of our most effective tools that we have. And I'm going into the background of games play because later on, we're going to get into some heavier stuff. When I mentioned the neurobiology, I break it down and I make it really easy so you can see how to integrate your dog seamlessly. But I want to give you some tools to assess, well, what do I do? What's my priority? So we understand the methodology. So games-based harnesses play. And play has all these awesome, good feeling hormones getting set off: endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin, even dopamine. You ever been seen someone at the casino with the jackpot, right? They're excited. They're going to go. That's how we get motivation. Dogs who lack motivation, it's brain chemistry. How do we get it? We give them a jackpot. So we play games to mold the dog that is waiting to come out. Yeah. The other thing about game space is we're solution focused learning. So what this means is, so let's say my dog jumps up on people when they meet them. I have a jumping up problem. Well, actually, what you have is an opportunity of disengagement. So disengagement means it's none of your business. Don't mind that. So disengagement would be a skill set that says to your dog, that exciting thing or that scary thing, it's none of your business. So the solution isn't forcing something, it's instead finding the solution, which is disengagement. Birds, cars, skateboards, people, It's all the same thing. So we train for concepts, and concepts are these building blocks in your dog's brain, and it becomes really easy. So instead of looking at the problem, my dog's jumping up, my dog's barking, my dog's pulling, we instead say they're lacking disengagement or calmness or optimism. They're barking out of fear because they're pessimistic, right? They don't have a very good outlook on life. They're stressed. They're in an anxious place. So the solution is calm, is optimism. We're going to keep distilling this so it becomes really second nature. As you're looking at your dog's behavior, you're not looking at it as a problem. You're seeing opportunity. And for rescue dogs, this is just one of the most powerful transformational tools we can apply. The thing that I mentioned about is that a dog has a brain. It sounds obvious, but sometimes we forget. They have these complex machines in their brain. Every dog has a brain. And so that's why we know with this kind of learning, it doesn't matter the dog's breed, history, or age. Every dog has opportunity using games-based. And I'm particularly passionate with rescue dogs because when we see trauma, we can actually see brain damage done to the tissue. I'm not saying they're brain damaged. I'm saying there's damage done to some of the tissue and creating lower stress, higher endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin. We start to see the brain heal. And that's where opportunity is created. Okay, and so in simple terms, we turn play into powerful learning experiences. If you feel good about it, your dog will too. Okay, so I'm going to get everybody to take a moment and unmute yourselves as long as you don't have the lawnmower going on in the background. And we're going to chat a little bit about everything a dog needs to know. So I'm going to start you off. Let me hear some of your suggestions. So I've got things like flexibility. Now I'll chat just briefly. So flexibility is go with the flow. So for example, we don't do the walk at 8 o'clock. We do the walk, I don't know, maybe at noon. That's being flexible, right? A dog who isn't rigid, it's flexible. How about safety? Feeling like this is a safe environment. That's everything a dog needs to know. Confidence, cooperation. Now I'm going to touch a bit more on cooperation because this really leans into the holistic side of dog training. Cooperation means that the dog actually has self-agency. Now that's big in some people's worldview of a dog, because when a dog can have self-agency, it means they have a choice, they have a say. And it can be really important in a rescue dog situation because they didn't have a choice. They were picked up from whatever situation and brought into a situation. They didn't choose that. And no offense, they didn't choose you. They're really going to love you, but they didn't get agency. And so when we're working with our rescue dog, we're going to work with a lot of cooperation. So a real life example of this is, let's say my dog is pulling on the leash. Totally normal and guaranteed your dog will pull on the leash. It's normal and natural. We don't want shoulder injuries and wrists broken. But in a cooperative relationship, my dog's going to give a little pull on the leash to say, I want to sniff that. And I get to make the decision, is that appropriate? Is it safe? Is this the right thing? Does it benefit us both? Meaning we've got the time, the place, etc. So my dog pulls and I cooperate and I say, sure, you go have that sniff. A second way of looking at it is I actually invite my dog to go and sniff. So maybe I denied them to sniff that one spot. It wasn't appropriate the way they asked me. They lunged and really pulled at it. And I was like, no, that's like a toddler yelling at me for the cookies. Not going to happen. But at a later point, I might say, hey, what's over here? And I invite them to go sniff. So that's what cooperation can look like. Cooperation can also look like touch. So this comes into daily husbandry care, how we touch our dog in a cooperative way, meaning that they give permission for that touch. Here's an awesome example. I have a puppy. I got her at 8 weeks. She came to me absolutely traumatized by having her toenails done with a grinder. Nothing wrong with the grinder. It's just in the application of how it was done. And she has, over a year and a half, progressed to being able to be touched. But until then, it was full trauma. And so we work through cooperative touch. She allowed me to progress touch. Okay, so respect. We could look at respect as they are a living sentient being. They have needs and rights. We could also look at respect as space. A sleeping dog is a sleeping dog. They need space. Their bowl is their own bowl. I don't like my husband going and eating my steak. I definitely don't need to be bugging my dog around their meals. Optimism. So if I went through life very pessimistic, it's not a great place to be. So what I believe every dog needs to have and keep growing is optimism. Life's going to work out. Calm. Who doesn't need a little calm in their life, or perhaps a whole lot of calm? And then lastly, I mentioned disengagement earlier. Disengagement would be considered a life skill. Okay, so that's my take on some. What would be some of yours that you could throw out? Did I miss anything?
I think the hardest one for me is the optimism. Like, I feel like my Mocha is constantly worried.
Yeah.
Constantly. Like, we've had her 4 years now, and she still will walk by the water bowl outside and look at it like, oh, I'm not touching that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that from my dogs, that's the hard one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So optimism and safety, right?
Mhm.
And trauma is really one that we can take, it can take a while for it to resolve. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anything else burning in there that you think I might have missed? Your answer will not be wrong unless it's like clowns and chocolate. Well, do you notice that I didn't put this very common thing that everybody wants to teach their dog? What is that? Does anybody know? The first sit. So what about sit? 1 out of 3 of my dogs know sit by word. The other 2 just do it because that's who they are. They'll sit for anything. To me, sit is just a party trick. It doesn't have any difference in their life. I'm not against it. Love it. Sit, down, stay. Those are really awesome. But in games-based dog training, we focus on skills that dogs can use for real life. And what I mean by that is things like disengagement. So let's use the greeting example. So my dog is excited or fearful, maybe a bit nervous of meeting somebody. And I get up nice and close to them and my dog jumps and I correct them and I say, sit. What did I resolve? I didn't give the dog a skill, did I? What I did is I actually put the dog into what I call a pressure into stillness. So they actually weren't ready for that position of sit, right? It's like putting a pressure cooker. I'm going to use now a games-based version is before I get up close to that person where there is a potential of them jumping, I'm going to use an attention noise, something that we've already worked out. So I'm a big fan of the word pop. So I use the word pop, and my dog suddenly looks at me and I take a few steps back. Now, suddenly their bum is facing the really exciting person. And they may choose to sit in front of me. Sure, that's awesome. But right there, I've used disengagement. And I've also paired it with calm. And so in the jumping up case, what I'm starting to do is build up a skill set. So when my dog sees a person, they turn around from that person and engage with me. So then I have a life skill. Now, again, I could put sit in there. Awesome. But sit doesn't give them that disengagement, that part of their brain that says, not gonna do it. And they do it all on their own, which is that's the miracle of games-based. We actually rewire those parts of their brain. So sit, I want you to remember, is not a bad thing. It is totally awesome, but it is as effective as fetching your newspaper or your slippers. It is really fun, and it's a great relationship, fun thing to do. It's fun. If it is fun. If it is pressured into stillness, it is not fun. So that's the taskmaster at the front of the classroom with a ruler hitting the desk saying, sit still. That doesn't change behavior. And unfortunately, we've been really nurtured into a sit culture. Strangers will even tell our dog to sit. So my biggest advice to you, amongst many pieces of advice I'd give to you, is let go of sit and focus on a lot of other things like trust and fun and disengagement and calm. And you're going to learn how to do this. Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry, my slides got all messed up somehow with the door knocking and the dog barking. So did the slides get all wonky. So let's see, we're at everything I need to know. What about sit? Oh yeah, so we're going to talk about the golden threes. Now you may have heard this. This is something that is actually quite popular, and I don't mind it. I think there is a lot of truth in this. So the golden threes refer to our first 3 days, 3 weeks, and 3 months. So this is where we're going to get a little bit more technical. When you bring your dog home, we want to start with a really small world. We want to start with baby gating a part of your home, setting up a dog bed or their crate or something that they're very comfortable to be in. And that is it. What we don't want to do is take our dog out of the vehicle, having just traveled from wherever, whether it's the airplane or the foster home, and open our door and say, the world's your oyster, bud. And the reason why is if we're focused on optimism, we want to start with success. And so short, sweet, successful. So those first 3 days, we really want to work on a small world. So in those first 2 days, everything is novel and likely overwhelming. And it doesn't mean that because your dog has had trauma, which it likely has had some form of less than optimal. What it means is that it's new. If you've ever been to a new hotel, a new country, it is. Some are bringing home a new young puppy. I can't see that. Can't see it. Oh, darn. Now did I lose? Oh, technology. Okay. So, Sue, can you turn your mic on? Just interrupt me. Some are bringing home a new what?
Sorry, I was just saying that Christine is bringing a second dog home.
Great.
Will be arriving at some point.
Okay, so
And
let's quickly
just so
dive into.
it's an introduction to a new to her cookie, who is amazing.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Every cookie
And then
got
some of the people here have not got their dog yet, but they are going to.
Okay, great. So let's keep we'll talk about cookies integration at the end there, and we'll tie this piece in. So if you've got cats, kids, dogs, ferrets, it doesn't matter. Those first 3 days that your dog is with you, really read the scene. This is not a time for your dog to have an interaction. This is actually a time for your dog to just unpack their luggage, lay on the bed, and have a few movies to watch. Get room service, take it really easy. Think of it as like a concierge service for your dog. We're going to do this for a couple reasons. The technical, the neuroscience part of it is they're decompressing. So it takes about 72 hours for their nervous system to regulate. That is in a normal regulated system. So most of us, and particularly our dogs, don't come with regulated systems. They come with erratic systems. So 3 days is like extremely minimal, but it's a very good start to then see, okay, bud, who are you? Not too sure yet, but at around the 3rd day is the time that we can start with maybe some outside adventure, some outdoor meetings, etc. Now, after the 3 weeks, now you're in 3-week mode, we're still keeping the world small. So our human desire is to expose our dog to all the wonderful, amazing things they're going to have. That's awesome. Make a whole bucket list. You're going to do that all in your rescue dog book, the handbook that I have for you. There's a checklist of all the things you can do, the timeline, etc. There's lots of little lists in there. But in those 3 weeks, your dog is starting to begin to settle in. So they're just getting comfortable with who they are in this new environment. And when this is happening, we may start to see some struggles surface. This is where behaviors that we would want to support really start to come in. Lots of people tell me that their baby puppies have amazing recall. Well, of course they do. Every toddler has great recall, and then they become a teenager and their world gets bigger. And so we see as dogs or puppies start to mature, whether it's through age or comfort, behaviors change. As well, when you're more comfortable, you can let go of some stuff. So particularly in rescues, we really want to bubble those 3 weeks because it is an opportunity to resolve trauma. You've got an amazing job right now, and that is to support your dog through the trauma. Now, for some dogs, this may not necessarily be because of what they went through. Some dogs are brought right out of a condition that isn't necessarily challenging. It just wasn't optimal. But every one of you from Coastal are getting dogs from overseas. And that flight alone, if you've ever done an international flight, it's hard. Now imagine having no clue what went on. It's really hard. And it can take dogs months to recover from that. So it doesn't matter how brave and tough your dog is, how excited they are, appreciate they are going to process that trauma. So then we get into the 3-month phase, and here we're really focusing on trust. So if we go back to what a dog needs, we're building on respect and cooperation, self-agency. We're growing those as skills before we're so worried about rules and sit and obedience, right? We want them to feel comfortable, accepted. There's always obviously limits. I'm not saying the dogs are monkeys on the counter, but I'm saying we don't need to worry about rules before trust and bonding and comfort. So this is a very critical phase. So if you think about from day 1 to about 3 months, you're sort of riding a wave there as you get to know your dog. Okay. So the 3 things we're going to really dive into right now are integration, socialization, and troubleshooting. These are your friends. Make really good friends with them. Get familiar. So integration, as I mentioned, takes 72 hours for a nervous system to regulate. Again, that's a kind of a stamp, but that's not the norm. It can take longer depending on the system, right? The capacity. The more you work with me, the more you'll hear me talk about a stress bucket, and that is referring to how your dog manages their stress. And in this case, we want to give them total holiday. They don't have to take on any stress. And the truth is, we don't know what stresses them yet. Is it noises? Is it space? Is it pressure? Is it touch? Is it the sky? Have they ever been on grass? Is it the sound of cutlery? We don't know. So we're going to take it really easy around those things. Socialization. This is a big piece of challenge for people. We're going to talk a lot more in depth about it in a few moments. Troubleshooting. So troubleshooting is referring to you're going to imagine you're in a relationship. And you think one thing about this person that you're with, but as you get to know them, you discover some other things about them. I never knew that. Well, that's your dog. Things change, and that's okay. The thing that we don't want to get ourselves into is he's never done that before. Well, actually, there's probably been a lot of other things going on that led up to that. He's never done that before, right? So when we're talking about integration, I'm going to encourage you to provide a quiet, comfortable, resting space. Don't overlook this. Really, truly, honestly, like the $1,000 consulting bill that you could pay for dog training, honestly, sleep. That is the big one, is getting our dog to sleep. Now, that is a little bit tricky when dogs are wired for action. So we want to help them. It's like a toddler saying, nope, I'm not tired. I don't need to sleep. Actually, you do. Avoid sudden loud noise exposure. So in this period of integrating your dog, this is a good time to safeguard your home environment. It's not a great time to be doing construction and inviting big parties over and birthdays and kid parties and all those things. Really protect them. It's going to happen. Perhaps think about having your dog at a friend's house that they're comfortable to be at, or just wait until it's really appropriate, and or come up with plan B, such as, is your dog comfortable in a room on their own while you're entertaining guests, etc. So offer gentle interactive play sessions. We're really wired for humans to have like rough play with dogs because they're kind of cuddly, like our stuffies. I think when we had teddy bears, I don't know, did we play rough with stuffies? But it's an odd relationship for humans and dogs to play rough. And the reason is that we're different species. And so our language is different, and it can be quickly misread. And that can cause pretty quick high arousal, which high arousal can be excitement. And I don't know what to do with this. And the next door neighbor to excitement is actually fear. And that's where we can run into some trouble. And so again, this is like just a nice get to know each other. Really take your time, understand what's consent for them. I was just playing with my puppy the other day and I wanted to check in. Actually, we were playing tug and I thought, do you really want to keep playing? So I stopped. And you know what? She went and laid on her bed and played just on her own. She was done playing. I was having a good time. I could have gone for a romp for 10 more minutes. But for her, she had a way out. And so that's what I want to offer you is always giving your dog that way out is by being one, gentle and not necessarily letting them lead in the sense if they're getting really excited, that's a good time to actually, I'm going to back off. Yeah. Next is we get creative with feeding and walking routines. So one of the things that we've inherited as dog owners is that we must walk the dog. So as I mentioned, I came from a background of dogs. I inherited that like crazy. My family had Dobermans actually. And so I'm one of the odd people that had 6 or 7 Dobermans in our home. And as having such a large working dog, they required a lot of exercise. And so rain or shine in Alberta, I would trudge out with my parents and we'd be working in the fields and walking dogs. And to me, that was just the way it is. I don't know any different until I learned different. So I want to use food and walking as interaction and strategy. So here's the other thing I did is I used a food bowl religiously. That was the only way I could think of feeding my dog. But then I thought, you know what? I'm going to put that food bowl in my training pouch. I'm not buying fancy treats. I'm just using good food, putting it into my bowl, in my training pouch. And when we're out for walks, I'm going to use that as reinforcement with my dog. For every good decision they make, there's some food. So I'm not increasing calories. I'm not increasing my budget. And they're getting a chance to interact with their food. So my suggestion to you is get creative with what feeding your dog looks like. Incorporate it into their life. Incorporate it into your bonding with them. Anything from hand feeding to scatter feeding, snuffle mats. Dogs love that. Every dog is different in how they can process work and effort. However, get to know how your dog eats their food. Don't just give it to them and walk away. That is bonding. And again, I just want to give you an opportunity that those walks have to be more beneficial than they are stressful. If your dog is spending 90% of the time scared, barking, you think they're going to bite the kid running by, we need to rethink. Where are you walking? How often are you walking? Those walks may not actually be productive just because we think I've got to walk the dog. Yeah. So in the games-based world, we call that ditch the walk. We also call it ditch the bowl. And it doesn't mean walks are off entirely. It just means we use it strategically, not mindlessly. And then lastly, in integration is your priority before the rules is understanding, patience, and love. So if you keep your dog's world small, you've got them in a small room, they're not going to get onto the counter surf, into the kitchen and counter surf. If you've got them in that room, they're not jumping on guests at the front door, right? If you're setting them up for success, you're not running after them, correcting them. You're setting them up in a space where they are successful. Okay, let's quickly move on to socialization, because this is the piece that most of us want to rush. So socialization isn't just meet and greets. It begins with comfort from a distance. So this doesn't matter what dog, whatever their circumstances, this means that at a distance, are you calm and are you optimistic? And then here's the big one, can you disengage? If you're not any of those, there's no benefit of having closer contact. We really want to safeguard, like protect like crazy, our dog's optimism. And one bad experience outweighs 100 good ones. Now there's neurochemistry why. That's for a whole other presentation. But for now, what I want you to understand is we're working at a distance. Can I pet your dog? No. That's not the benefit at this point. We want to say, can I pet your dog? Actually, standing there is the perfect thing. And I'm going to help my dog release pressure from having to interact. Now, perhaps your dog shows a lot of genuine affection, which is loose, open body language, and it's controlled, right? Just think of calm, nice, maybe pushing into their leg. Of course, that's a nice greeting, right? But a dog who's pulling on the leash or like cowering away and someone says, can I pet your dog? It's not beneficial for your dog. What is taking a few steps back and in allowing your dog a chance that I don't have to have that conversation. Yeah, whether that's with another dog or with a person. I was just running a class. I do a social training walk. So I take a group of people and their dogs out into variety of environments, real life on our island, which yes, it's small town. We don't have subways and whatnot, but it's big enough or busy enough for us. And so in this particular class, there were dogs, walking in town. And the thought was my dog has to say hi. And actually, what my dog needed to do is disengage, to say, hey, yeah, and just keep walking by. Not, who are you? What did you have to eat? Where are you going? That's just crazy, right? And for example, the lab who's going to pull the person across the street to say, what did you have to eat today? No, we don't need that. Actually, the lab can be like, hey, yeah, and just keep on walking by. So that's the value that we want to see in having our dogs not necessarily meet like this. If you've ever been to a house party, it can be really overwhelming to take on every conversation. And if it's perhaps a bit of a rowdy party, like a dog park, perhaps there isn't like really controlled conversations and it can be very overwhelming. So as a flat out statement, granted, I don't know you, the dog's the dog park, I am going to say 100,000% don't take your dog to a dog park. There's about 2% of dogs who go to dog parks who are qualified to go. The rest of it is unskilled social conversations. And if you can't really see this thing back here, but this is our what's called a chain of interaction. So there are a lot of methodologies in dog-dog interactions, but until you are like rock solid in your dog's relationship, your dog inside and out, you see them super optimistic, a bomb could go off and they're like, cool. No dog park. Keep interactions short and sweet, giving space. So there could very well be a dog-dog interaction. So I'm not saying, whoa, back off. You have to now use a blowhorn to tell everyone to back off. What I'm saying is that if it does happen, you're going to keep it nice and sweet. I use a 3-second rule. So we see the dog and we just keep walking by. So that takes all of 3 seconds. Just keep on walking. Just think about, I don't need to say hi to everybody in the neighborhood. How you doing? Nice to see you. That's awesome, right? Short, sweet, successful. If you have a little dog or a puppy, pick them up. This came up today, so I'm going to mention it. There's some myth about not picking up small dogs. Well, we don't prescribe to that. We help dogs out of emotional distress or discomfort. And because we protect like crazy their optimism, there's no way I'm going to put my dog into a compromising situation, especially with a dog I don't know, probably not match size or age, right? So nothing wrong with scooping up your dog, having a protected experience. That's it. Observe body language for comfort. So here's the thing. You do get into an interaction with a dog or a person. What you're looking for is relaxed, open, loose movements. Tight, rigid patterns, explosive. We want to back out of those interactions. That is unskilled, right? It is pessimistic. It's not calm, and it's not disengaging, right? So as your dog grows skills, that's what we're going for, is like loose, nice, chill. But those tight movements, pretty good indicators this isn't comfortable. So don't only rely on the tail. That tail is like just a quarter of the puzzle. Avoid forcing unwanted interactions or experiences. So I cannot enforce enough. A forced interaction is, can I touch your dog? And your dog's like, please don't come closer. Please don't come closer. Oh, you're touching me. You're touching my head. My ears hurt. And you just touched my ears. And they tolerate it. And you know what? Now, if they growl, they're in trouble, right? They did something bad, but that whole situation, it wasn't wanted. So when we want to, how we can avoid forcing unwanted is checking in, always giving an out. So again, and I mentioned playing with my puppy Phyllis, I gave her an out of an enjoyable experience. And even then that was surprising to me. Like, that's really good to know. Like that was just a few minutes and you were good to play on your own. So particularly in human and dog interactions, and when it's human interactions with rescue dogs, we don't know their history. And unfortunately, some of our dogs that we get will come from really tragic experiences. And so association and past learned experiences can show up very quickly. Yeah. So we want to really get to know our dog and support them through that. So optimism is the key to success. And then we've got, do we got it? Nope. How do we do this? Sue, can you sing for us? I seem to have lost my, yeah, hang on. We'll get this going. Because it's too good. Is everybody getting some insights? Yeah. Yeah, good. It's surprising, isn't it? It's a different way of looking at dogs. And you know, I love new ways of learning and growing. And I love that you're all willing. I think that is amazing. So where did we get to? Oh yeah, stress geek. Okay, got to zip through this because I'm on time. Stress profoundly affects rescue dogs. So there's a whole host of reasons why. And again, I'd really love to do one of our clinics specifically about stress. As Sue mentioned, for example, with Stella, she's just in a chronic state of stress. And there's a myriad of combinations of factors, from brain gut health to dopamine, serotonin swings in the brain, to actual damage done to the brain tissue. So there's a variety of things that we can look at. But what we want to do is manage our dog's cortisol level. So I'm not saying you got to go get your dog's brain under an MRI to see exactly, but just like you, too much cortisol, too much stress isn't good.
Okay? I don't think they can hear me.
What's that? Oh, yeah. Too much stress doesn't produce good behavior. So here's the thing, when you get into any kind of behavior struggle, and you will, and it's okay, dogs are dogs. They're just normal, natural beings. Right now, my puppy's barking out the window. That's what they do. They do things. The thing is, what you want to do is be able to identify, is this a stress response? Because when, for example, you are stressed, your bucket is full, you might not be in your best behavior, right? You might be a little bit snappy, just less capable of taking on things that you normally would be, right? Same thing as your dog. So stress can look like excessive pulling on the leash, excessive barking. Although we can see, and I don't know if you could hear Phyllis there, that wasn't excessive barking. Excessive barking would be constantly patrolling, just unable to settle, bark, 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 lots of that. We see stress come out in humping, stress come out in salivating, licking paws, scratching, yawning, lots and lots of symptoms of stress. And so managing cortisol levels. Again, in your handbook, you'll go through lots of that. And on your support page, below everything, you'll see there's dozens and dozens of articles. I'm a big thing about stress because that is such a big, big component. So you'll see tons of resources. There's even videos. I'm sorry, I'm not an actress. I'm not professional. They're videos, okay? They're out there. So don't share them too widely. Give bucket holidays. So bucket holidays is like what I gave an example, like just lay about in bed, you get room service. So what can you do for your dog that doesn't expose them to stress and gives them a day off, right? So for example, if they're always stressed about the neighbor's dog, go out a different door, go a different path, take that stress away from them, things that you can control, promote calm. So calm looks like, for example, when you're setting up your house for integration, you will have immediately made a calm zone. And you're going to keep defaulting to that. And you're going to rehearse the room. So that room is where calm behavior is. If you want to get involved in a play, a tug, a throwing, you designate the room for that. If that's inside the house, well, have at her. But no, that can mean when you're settling to watch your movie, but previously you've played some fetch games over the couch. How does your dog know, like, this is game time? So rehearse the room. That promotes calm, and cultivate optimism. Have I mentioned optimism? I think I have. So now we've got, do we have this one? Well, I'm not all that impressed with this, this app, because now you guys can't see my screen, can you? And we're almost... That's really too bad. It was going quite well, wasn't it?
See you. We can see you, but not the these things.
Okay.
And actually, for me, it's so small, I can't really see what it says either.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to finish up with letting you know the last piece that I'm a big fan about is building trust. So when you're focusing on integrating your rescue dog, your key things are setting your dog up for success. We do that by small worlds. Always consider, make the world small. Second is assess their stress constantly. Just like your own stress, it's going to change and fluctuate, but particularly for your rescue dog, it's going to change maybe a bit erratically, and they're going to show it differently. So you're going to adjust accordingly, but get your practices in place for calm and what I referred to earlier, bucket holidays. And again, your handbook will give a few more dives into what that means. And then lastly is, because, well, here's a statistic, 85% of dogs struggle with behavior issues. So we're pretty sure you're going to encounter some form of behavior struggle. Now, your behavior struggle might be a genuine behavior, or it could be, I just want my dog, such as I just want my dog to not rush out the door, right? That's not a behavior struggle versus my dog has bit someone. That's a behavior struggle. So one of the ways that we are safeguarding these behavioral struggles and also getting your needs and desires met is on your rescue support page. So you've got your handbook, you've got access to me. Coastal gets a discount. I make my prices really affordable. Again, my goal has been not to make my living out of charging people, but to have multiple ways of accessing I make a living. Don't get me wrong. These are not, I don't just give things for free. This is my job. I am a professional. But my point is that I don't need to, what do you say, like milk one thing to get that dollar from you. So I am not concerned if this is a financial strain for you to get support. Please don't let that ever be a barrier to get help for your dog. I really, that's important. On the other side of that, I've got lots of free learning that's very high quality. This is, to me, something, again, really important, that you get access to the right information. And then lastly is, get geeky with me. So join me for the Facebook Lives. We'll be having them the 15th of every month. We cover topics from dog-dog interactions to canine body language to everybody's got a barking problem or pulling on leash, polite greetings, just dog stuff. Yeah. Okay. I'd love to open up the floor.
I just want to say that I've listened to so many of these sessions with Jessica, and I always pick up something. There's always some little nugget of knowledge that sort of goes on my head.
Awesome. Thank you, Sue. You've been very dedicated. So please take a few moments now and think about a question that you might have for your upcoming or current dog with you.
We can unmute.
What about interaction with other dogs? Like we've got 2 other dogs in the house, and I get that space we want to define them in, especially at the first part coming into the house. But how do we interact the other dogs with the new rescue dog?
So in a multi-dog household, what I would suggest is, depending on the group, is meeting outside of the house, particularly if it's an age difference or size difference, that can be helpful. I'd also choose not meeting the whole group at once. So I would choose one of your dogs who's you can read as the loosest, the softest, the calmest, the dog who deflects all conflict, the dog who, if you have a dog like that, or the one closest to that. And I would suggest going for just a little walk with the 2 dogs. Second to that is you can take your 2 dogs out of the house. So if they're comfy in the vehicle, just put them in there and let your new dog have run of the house for 10-15 minutes, sniff around. So they're going to collect all that information about your 2 dogs, right? He can go into your dog's spots and sniff it without the interference of the resident dogs coming in. And then I would select the dog that you think would be the easiest, the most chill, and go for a nice little loose walk. And if that goes really well, then I would shift it over and then go for a short walk with the other dog. And I'd probably leave it at that for the first day. And then the next day, see what it's like to take all 3 dogs for a walk. And I'm not looking for big high arousal on that walk. It's just maybe they want to sniff around together, sniff each other. But when we look at their interaction, what you're looking for is nose to nose, nose to bum, and then hopefully nice to meet you, and we just carry on. That's about it. If you
Sorry, I'm not doing the training, but can I also mention that what was I going to say? Shoot, went out of my head now. I'll come back.
So if you see at any point any of those dogs starting to stiffen and get kind of rigid, that's a good clue. Okay, just nice and calm. All right, bud, let's go this way.
Yeah,
yes.
I know what I was thinking. So if you were walking with 3 dogs, make sure there's 2 of you and one of you has the other 2 dogs, and the new dog is at a comfortable distance, never like right together.
Yeah.
And then when they're in the house, keep them separate for how many, like a week, like.
It really depends on your situation. It can be a lot for a dog. So I would say you're looking at weeks as a good ballpark figure. And that could look like, if they are loose together, it's for short periods of time and maybe casual in the evenings. I'm a big use of what's called boundaries. So I like to put my dog on a bed, and that's their island. And so to me, all my dogs, if there's ever question about anybody's mood, they go on a bed, and a bed is their place. So that's what I would consider. Dogs with too much time to poke around with each other can and just make things uncomfortable. So that's an option. An option could be just spending time with two of the dogs in the home loose. And again, I would do 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Maybe you want to watch a movie. That's sort of a goal to have. And then you think, okay, I think we're ready for the third dog. But just like any kind of party, the more energy you bring, the more dynamics that new dog has to take on. So again, it depends on your rescue dog, and what they're capable of right now. It might be really smooth, or you might be needing more smaller worlds and just shorter interactions. Because the thing that you're looking for is the long-term easy, no resentments, no walking on eggshells around each other, just actually the environment is controlled, not the dogs. So when we control the environment, we are very sure of everybody's role in the house, right? So for example, in my home, I have set up different areas. I have 3 dogs, so I don't mean to sound like I've got some kennel in my home, but although my husband thinks so. I have areas for dogs who might enjoy some time on their own, right? And that just means one dog is on a bed in an area with a bone, because that bone is exciting to the other dogs, but actually that dog gets to have a bone without being bugged. So that's just a few scenarios depending again on your situation, but small world, start outside, start small, look for the successes and the open, loose engagement. Don't get too high arousal. If they're like, woohoo, you look like a wrestler, keep those kind of visits short for the first few months, because it just keeps a little more calm in the household. They're not necessarily playmates in the house. They can be playmates outside, and that keeps areas like trigger areas around thresholds, or which are doorways, and food and resources. It just keeps all that under control.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. How about Cookie? Who has Cookie? Nobody? Somebody has a Cookie.
Sorry, that was Christine has Cookie, but I was watching her. She's a flight attendant and she probably just got back from flight. I could see she was nodding off, I think. So
Oh,
I
no.
think she's not here.
Okay, well, she'll get the recording.
Yeah.
What's her situation with Cookie?
So she has a wonderful dog already.
Mhm.
And she saw this other little mini me Cookie, and Cookie is like the perfect dog. He just came over and was the perfect dog. And then this other little one is looking like it's also going to be a perfect little puppy, but it's a younger dog. It's definitely a puppy. And I think everybody, we're all flight attendants and we're all like, that looks just like Cookie. You have to get her. You have to get her. And she just, her heart just jumped out of her body, and we all convinced her husband that it was time.
And Cookie's how old?
Cookie must be about 2.5 now, I think.
Oh, okay.
And a great dog, like
Yeah.
a great.
So it's a
never
good
had a
age to
problem.
introduce another dog.
Mhm.
The one thing I would suggest is giving puppy still small space. And the reason is it's like having an annoying sister keep bugging you to play. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Again, it doesn't give new dog great skills if they're just like pinata the Cookie, and that can then lead to Cookie being awesome, having run of the house, this is like queen of her castle, and then suddenly it's just constant bombardment, and that's a mismanagement thing. So I would go about the same way of still utilizing small spaces for puppy, which can alleviate pressure and just annoyances on Cookie. But it sounds like she's easygoing enough. And another tip with that is Well, you really see how it goes, but I wouldn't do anything too different, but I just wouldn't take advantage of
Yeah.
Cookie's good
No,
nature.
absolutely. Yeah, no. I'll touch base with her too before before she comes over. She won't be coming for like a month, so.
Cool. Yes, I see a hand up.
Jessica, thank you so much. You're so knowledgeable and so passionate. It's so lovely to learn from you. We don't actually have our doggy yet. We hope to receive him
It'll
soon.
be confirmed any day now.
But, we were wondering around the first week or so, your routines. How much should you keep your routine as normal? I work from home, but I do go to the office sometimes for afternoon meeting or something. Do you recommend taking time off the first week and just being available to the puppy, or would that be too much? Just
Tempting.
I
I
just
know.
work on like normal.
When I got my puppy, I was like, okay, I'm off work for a month.
I
Do
do want
not
to play with him
disturb.
all the time. But yeah, is it better for them to observe your natural, get into the rhythm of the household? Go to the gym, she'll be out for an hour. Okay, that's normal. Is that better to just keep your regular routine? Okay.
Totally. Keep your life as normal as possible, within reason. Like now it's not, go work, to the gym, to the movies. Oh yeah, dog, right? So obviously that's not what you're suggesting, but yeah, everything's the same. You may find that you're declining on a few invitations. That's normal.
High risk of that.
It does wear off, trust me. But the other thing about routine is, there's two minds to this, and we have to be a bit strategic and intelligent about how we're utilizing actually routine. So you've got your own routine, your work and whatnot. But when we're looking at routines for dogs, here's where we get into a bit of a tricky zone. There's a lot of information on the internet about providing particularly rescue dogs routine. And it's common sense. You could think, okay, well, that creates predictability. Predictability is safety and comfort. Awesome. We know safety is up there on our what do I need? But predictability can lead to stress, anticipation. So I like to play in the flexibility area of things, go with the flow. So food doesn't happen at any particular time. Food doesn't happen in this spot and only in this way. Our walks are flexible. But there are other things that won't change, like your work schedule, etc. So that's all I wanted to say with routine. If that's helpful for all of you, is try to make an effort of creating flexibility in your routine with your dog as a way to minimize, again, what I called anticipatory stress. So this is also the dog that's like, cool, we're not walking today. Awesome. No problem. I'm good to have my Kong and my bone. Cool. The dog who's like, when are we going? Are we going to go now? It's already 3:00. Are you still going to sit there? You're sick? I don't care. I need to walk. That dog is not very flexible, right? So trust me, you also are going to have a cold one of these days, and it's going to be miserable and raining, and you're going to look at the dog and be like, dude, no, I don't want to go. And we're not negotiating about it. So I like ditching the routine for my own personal. It's just easy to live with each other that way. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't want my dogs anticipating stress that way. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My dogs totally anticipate their morning walk. Like
Yeah.
their morning routine. I get out of bed, they hold their heads up. I go to the bathroom, I come out of the bathroom, they take off the bed, they go out for pee. And then when we come back, there's no regulation after that.
I know. I'd love to be more routine. I think it would be, keep me accountable, but I'm like, no, I got to ditch it.
Yeah. I mean, they love routine. They love knowing what's going to happen, but in the long run, it just doesn't, it's not practical.
That's what I say. It's a fine balance that we have to assess the flexibility of our dog. Are they flexible? If they are, and they can adapt to the routine, like, yeah, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, no problem. But absolutely, when we get into, and flexibility becomes an issue when dogs struggle with anxiety. That's generally where we want to start shaping flexibility. So anxiety about, well, when are you going? When are you coming? When are you going to go again? Are you leaving? It looks like you're leaving. How long are you going to be gone for? Right. So separation anxiety or related behaviors become very dependent on routine. And that's when it becomes now a very magnified issue, which is quite common in dogs. And so while we're kind of laughing about, you know, the routine is like the walk and whatnot, but we can see the ugly head of actually what they're trying to predict is, when are you going? Yeah. When is that bad thing going to happen? Yeah. So we can mitigate some of those anxieties by gently massaging the routine. And for the most part, depending on the dog, it works out just fine. And now I want to say some dogs who come with quite extreme trauma, I still, from anticipatory stress. So here's the thing. Some dogs come from a traumatic place and then they go into the shelter, and in the shelter, they're very routine, right? They don't get to ditch the routine with the dogs, right? At 5 o'clock, every dog is fed, or whatever their routine is, but that's the function. And so routine in itself can even be association to trauma, right? And so we can, again, it really depends on each dog and what they're processing, but a good rule of thumb is let go of the routine, just like you can get creative with the food and the walk. Yeah, we just get creative. What does our day look like? Here's a brief example. So my dog does physio, and she's very she anticipates, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and this. And so today, wow, I just like blew her mind, and we did it differently. And she was like, what? This doesn't happen. And it was just a very subtle way of saying, yeah, why not? Right? You can see in ourselves, go with the flow. It really helps in a variety of ways. So yeah, if you do find yourself with a dog who has had experienced quite significant trauma, which you realize after, or is experiencing separation anxiety, reach out to me. That is a good time. We can do a consult and get a really good picture and tools. Again, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and we use neurochemistry and biology to help a dog through that. So it's, again, a dog with a brain. Yeah. It becomes science-based as opposed to, well, my uncle did this and it worked out really well. Yeah. I like to see what it does on a research basis and on a larger scale. Yeah.
Anybody else have a quick question before we wrap it up?
Yeah, quick question. I know we're running short on time. We're just waiting for our dog, Nora, and a flight volunteer. And she'll be our second rescue dog. But just a quick question, in terms of the first 24 hours off of the plane, obviously want to keep her activities quite low, but something like if she had soiled herself quite badly on the flight, like, is a bath okay?
Can I just address that? I've brought over almost 400 dogs, and I've had one that was soiled when they arrived. They don't feed the dog, maybe very early in the morning, a little bit of food, but they don't get any food then before they come. And it's a long day. So by the time they get to the airport, they take them for a walk, they clean themselves out. And generally, it just so, you know, generally speaking, it hasn't been a problem.
Okay. Yeah, we had a friend that brought a dog over and he was covered in poop. So that was, yeah. So that was my
it certainly could happen. And if you do, and I'll address this as a broad, if in the first 24 hours you have to do something to your dog that you know is going to be uncomfortable, eye drops, ear drops, so they got something in their mouth, whatever. Yeah. Obviously, if you can avoid it, you can. However, what I'm going to suggest for you is, let's say you have to do something to your dog that's not water-based, right? So the tub is different. There's alternatives to the bath, so that we can talk about that. But if you have to do something to your dog, I want you to use a very specific mat or towel. So that towel, a yellow towel, blue towel, red towel, it doesn't matter, but you're going to lay that towel out and you're going to put your dog on there and you're going to perform whatever it is you need to. And then you take that towel away. Okay. So that's done. Now, again, let's say this is a routine. You have to do the eye drops and they just hate it. You're going to put that towel back, toenails, etc. That towel is back. You're going to perform whatever it is you need to, and you take that towel away. So what's happening is you're creating by association. The towel is the event, not you. So here's an example. A rabbit required eye drops. And so the hand would reach in, pick up the rabbit, put the drops in. So it started to associate hands, drops, bad. Well, instead, we put a towel or a blanket over it. So then when that blanket is on, I get the drops. Any other time, I don't get the drops. So that's how we start to manage these it's got to be done things. Yeah. But now when it comes to like washing and caring like that, I'm a really big fan. Instead of putting the dog in the tub, is I would just, again, lay out the towel and use like a big salad bowl with a washcloth, nice warm, and just pat it on them. And that's more than fine. The other thing you can do is at most pet stores, they have spray shampoos, so that it's like a mousse and you just like wipe it on them. And it's a way to, get around the onslaught of the tub.
Melissa, if the dog arrives with poop on it, I'm going to be really upset.
That one time.
Yeah, that one time, she's going, nobody believes me anymore.
398 successful flights.
Yeah. But
All right,
honestly, it's very, very rare.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't want to add extra trauma to a very stressful day already. So that was the only.
Yeah.
And then, just your mindset, thinking about that and really looking at, okay, what can we do to really, really protect it? You're going to be okay. And that being proactive in how you're setting your dog up. The worst case scenarios are someone is ignorant to these things, obvious things, and suddenly, takes a dog to downtown and is walking the dog around, etc. That would be an extreme bad choice example. And then there's things like, well, that was an accident, but you're going to recover from it. And that's what we want to help grow in our dogs is also, that's what we could add to our list is resiliency. That's a big one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so again, next steps, you've got jessicabeck.ca rescue. Those are a lot of support resources there. Use them, send me questions. I'm very quick to answer usually. And there again is the live on Facebook on the 15th. And I think probably the topic, I haven't decided yet, but I think probably it's going to be body language. That's one of my favorites. Again, a lot of misinformation and it's super useful. When I run in person here on the island, when I run these workshops, they're really popular. Just shows, in a small island to pack a house it's got to be good.
Yeah. There's a lot of dogs on the island.
That's true. And there's a lot of dogs. Yeah, I'm in a good job.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. And for those of you waiting, I will get to you. Honestly, it's been a crazy, like my phone is just, I'm watching my phone going, oh God, I got all this to deal with. There's a lot going on. So we will be in touch and thank you.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
Join us for the next one on the 15th will be something not related to like arriving dogs, but general. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah. Oh, you're so welcome. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.